Hi, folks. Welcome back to Critical Corner. Pelosi seems to signal this could be your last term as Speaker. Listen, if my husband is listening, don't let me have to be more specific than that. That ain't what the hell that means. Well, let's move on. Oh, by the way, for most of you probably know, because people that do listen to my videos and other videos of conservative-minded people know that the Speaker of the House is third in line for the presidency. It goes President, Vice President, Speaker of the House. And that should scare the crap out of you already. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Democrat, California, who's been tapped by Democrats to run for Speaker for a seventh and eighth year, signaled in a series of vague comments Wednesday that this term would be her last as Speaker of the House. At the start of this Congress, there was a discussion about putting in place some kind of term limits for the leadership team. I'm curious if you anticipate this coming Congress should be your last as Speaker, reporter asked Nancy Pelosi in a press conference. Pelosi said, when that conversation took place, there was a move to put term limits on their leadership and chairs of committees. Might be a good idea. Republicans, too. I'm 50-50 on term limits. Term limits is what ruined the city council here in upstate New York and Binghamton. Put out a lot of good people. And that's the problem. You throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm 50-50 on term limits. No, it's not. It's a statement that I made, Pelosi said. Listen, if my husband is listening, don't have to be more specific than that because we never expected to have another term now. Yeah, that's right. Because 2 years ago, you assumed, and as time went on the first year, that she would lose the House. Badly. But it didn't happen. Even with all the fake Russian collusion nonsense, even with your fake impeachment nonsense, you still held on. Why? Because of COVID-19. It's the reason why you barely squeaked by and held on to the House. If 5 more seats had flipped, you would have been not the Speaker. It would have been the minority leader. Or somebody else would, because you wouldn't lower yourself, God forbid. It's amazing to me. And that's why Donald Trump looks like probably won't have another term, at least in a row. Let me go off on a little tangent. I see a lot of parallels between Andrew Jackson and Donald Trump. As far as his personal, how he sees things, his personality, his attitude. He's fairly aggressive. If you all remember Andrew Johnson, I'm going to put a quarter in the swear jar. Andrew Jackson got screwed out of the presidency by John Quincy Adams. I believe it was 1824. I'm trying to do this from memory. There were several people running for president, and nobody had 50% of the electoral votes plus 1. That's where they get the 270 from. 269 is half, plus 1 is 270. Nobody had that total because there were multiple people running. But Jackson had most of the popular votes, and he had most of the electoral votes. But it still goes to the House by Constitution. John Quincy Adams made a deal with some congressmen, and they voted his way. And Jackson was furious, and rightfully so, because he had both electoral and popular votes. So for 4 years, it was a crap storm, and Jackson raised hell. And then when John Quincy Adams ran for re-election, Jackson destroyed him. I see a lot of similarities. Jackson got cheated. I think you could either say Trump got cheated or a incredible stroke of bad luck with COVID. Depends what side of the aisle you're on, I guess. I consider this a gift, and I can't wait to work with Joe Biden, she continued. I don't want to undermine any leverage that I have, but I made that statement. I mean, who the hell knows what this woman is talking about? Honestly, it's ridiculous. Democrats met virtually on Wednesday morning to select their top leaders for the 117th Congress. Pelosi ran unopposed for the Democratic nomination for Speaker. The GOP will run House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, they already know he's going to be the minority leader. He'll be the next Speaker, of course. You heard it here first. Well, maybe not first, but you heard it here anyway. It's going to happen. The Democrats are going to be wiped out. The full House of Representatives elects a Speaker when it convenes on January 3rd. The winning candidate for Speaker requires an outright majority of the entire House, not just a majority from your party. In other words, 218 votes out of 435. 15 Democrats voted against Pelosi's speakership last Congress, but with some votes still being tallied in this month's elections, 10 incumbent House Democrats have been defeated, dashing expectations of adding seats and damaging party morale. Yeah, because your progressive leftist agenda is not wanted by the American people, only in select large cities, where if you're a Democrat, no matter what, you win. No matter what your platform is. AOC comes to mind. 11 race still hasn't been called, but Democrats currently carry a 15-seat majority. That could shrink to perhaps 222 to 213 majority, one of the smallest in decades. Yeah, it could have. I mean, look at the numbers here. If 5 seats more had flipped, it'd be 218, 217. But that's not the way it worked out. This has sparked finger-pointing with progressives saying the party failed to adequately win over minority and young liberal voters. I guess hating Trump's guts for 4 years straight, day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, 24/7 wasn't enough? Oh, really? That the entire 90% of the mainstream media pounded on this guy relentlessly and called him everything from a monster to Hitler. He killed 250,000 people under COVID. I guess that wasn't enough to convince your minority and young liberal voters. Come on, give me a break. Moderates say they were hurt by far-left initiatives like defunding the police and that Pelosi should have struck a pre-election stimulus deal with the White House. Yeah, she should have. But she saw that COVID was working in their favor. I'm not saying that the Democrats caused the COVID outbreak. I've never even implied it for some people that have commented in the past. But they saw this crisis and they took advantage of it. Is that smart strategy on their point? Yeah, probably. But not to do the stimulus deal, that sucked. That was really wrong. It was. They hurt a lot of people by not doing that. Besides bitterness over their election setback, many Democrats continue calling for fresh leadership. Pelosi and House Majority Leader Representative Steny Hoyer, I believe it's pronounced, Democrat, Maryland, has been number 1 and number 2 House Democrat since 2003. While House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, Democrat, South Carolina, rose to number 3 ranks in 2007. Pelosi and Clyburn are 80. Hoyer is 81. Now, I'm not going to badmouth Jim Clyburn, even though I believe what he does with race and talks about is absolutely disgusting. The man was old enough, and he was directly involved in the civil rights of the 1960s, so I'll give him that. I'll give him a pass from criticizing him personally, but he was the one that propped up Joe Biden and that cluster blank that the Democratic primary was and pulled him out of the garbage. And he got the nomination. It was Jim Clyburn that did that. For better or well, Pelosi served the first 4 during the 2000s until Republicans captured the House majority in the Tea Party election in 2010. Yes. After 2 years of Obamacare that went too far, and the American people reacted. A conservative uprising that presaged the rise of Trump. I don't think they had anything to do with it. I think Trump was just as bad on the Republicans. Trump is not a conservative Republican. Trump is not a liberal Democrat. He's something different. And I'm going to leave you with this. Even though I think the president got ripped off, slashed, incredibly bad luck with COVID, I think these tens of millions of ballots were a really bad idea. A really bad idea. Well, if you're a Democrat, it's a good idea. Well, no, it's not. Those tens of millions of ballots floating around went somewhere and somebody turned them in. We're never really going to know the full story, but I think it hurts the country to do something like that. The end does not always justify the means. The man was not Adolf Hitler. He was not a monster. He was not a racist. Yeah, he's got some key personality flaws, no question. But they weren't dealing with him legitimately. And the crap he went through and the lies and the slander still continues from the same social media monsters that run Facebook, Twitter, and other things as well, who got ripped today by the Republicans. Yeah, they're just pounding their chest. And 2 weeks from now, nothing will happen. It's a shame. I wish they would pick up the sword, because if President Trump doesn't continue in his second term, at least consecutively, he's taught them how to fight back. We'll see. He took the Republican Party, I think, that was a spineless milquetoast, just worthless for trying to defend their positions and their constituents, to a party with some backbone. They had some PR problems, that they were known, at least perceived, as the party of the white rich people. They were just snobs, and they were all racist. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. Trump showed the Republican Party is a bigger tent than the Democrats, and a lot better one. We'll see if they pick up the ball. We'll see. Anyway, folks, there it is. And until next time, goodbye and good luck.